Hey everybody, welcome back to another Opus 12 set review. Today we're going to be talking Lightning, and I'm joined as always by Travis Pfeifer.
Crack-a-boom! Hope you guys are in a very electric mood because we're definitely going to bring the thunder with this set review.
Excellent, yeah, and we always got our pun to start off the episode or the video from Travis. It's much appreciated. So we're going to go through the 18 cards that Lightning got, and we are saving the multi-element for our final video with light and dark cards, so you can just wait for that to come out for those, or if it's already out, you can go check that out after. But we will be just covering the straight Lightning ones for this one. So without further ado, let's get the first one up on screen, and it is Red Mage. And this is a 3 CP backup standard unit, job 14. When you cast a summon, you may put Red Mage into the break zone, and when you do so, choose one forward of cost 3 or less and break it. This was such a pain in the butt to use during pre-release. I had a bunch of them in my deck, and I actually played them. I had a bunch of summons, and for some reason in my head I was thinking like, oh, you have to have like a certain cost summon. No, it's any summon. If you have a 1 CP summon like the new Alexander, it triggers this, so I'm gonna give it some points for that. But overall, things just kept, like, it was hard to set up because it's 3 CP. The cost restriction of what it breaks is really tricky as well, and so my opponent kept playing like bad low cost forwards or like 4 cost forwards, so there was never a good time to use it. So I don't rate this card highly at all. I really think they could have pushed it a bit and done like forward of cost 4 or less, but that's just me.
Don't you hate stuff like this? And then you're like, would you please just play the card I need to counter you?
Oh,
like,
yeah, I know.
So I've now noticed a trend in these Final Fantasy 14 jobs. I think this is the third one we've got, that it's this type of backup that it doesn't need to dull for its effect. So again, you can tap it for CP, but then when you cast a summon, it does an extra effect based on its element. Similar to the other ones, again, it's nice that you don't have to dull it. And one thing I do like about all of these is that they aren't specifics. Like, it's not like it has to be a lightning summon. It can just be any summon. So you could put this anywhere. But as you clearly pointed out with your real life example of your pre-release, it's just 3 CP to do nothing, to then maybe hopefully have something later that then is still going to lose you a backup and has to target a very specific thing. Like, no. Red Mage is awesome in Final Fantasy 14, but this card is not.
I think this concept of like backup effect is very intriguing, because think about how you make room for summons in your decks and the summons you wish you could include. So if you wanted to put utility summons in your deck and then you're like, oh, I have to take out Odins, well then I could run this backup, and it's like paying for my Odins and then using them later on with a utility summon. But so many things have to line up and the cost isn't really right, so it's just not going to work.
Agreed.
All right. Next we have Argy, or Argy. It is a 3 cost 7k forward. Job is Memorist. I assume that's Memorist. Category FFL. It is a forward. When Argy is put into the break zone in any situation by your opponent's summons or abilities, add Argy to your hand at the end of the turn. At damage 5, when Argy is put from the field into the break zone, choose one forward of cost 3 or less opponent controls. Break it. I think there was some kind of like text issues with this card, because I saw a version of this card when like the stuff first got put out that it just said when RG's put into the break zone in any situation, put it back into your hand. And so some people are like, oh, you can discard it and then it comes right back. But since then, this is the official version that it's no by your opponent's summons or abilities. And that text is a little like, I wonder why they felt the need to specify that, because any other card that has something, you know, think of the Porum from Opus 9, when Porum's put to the break zone, get back a summon. So it's interesting they specified in any situation. I understand the specification of your summons or ability, your opponent's summons or abilities, but I wonder why it's like it's because it's so most cards will say from the field to the break zone. This is any situation. So the discard thing is if someone plays a Sephiroth and makes you discard, and you discard Argy, then you can bring them back to your hand.
Interesting. Okay, thank you for that clarification. So that definitely bumps it up notches in my book. So that's cool. So it's almost like this is a great like discard protection that, okay, I'll gladly throw this away. Whoop, pull it back. Now the only thing is, again, it's at the end of the turn, so like if that happens early in your turn, and if they have some kind of break zone shenanigans, which I just have to mention because Kadaj is still as relevant as he is, that, you know, they can take it out of the break zone before the end of the turn hits, and then you're not going to get it back. But excluding that, it's nice to get that back. And then, of course, his second effect, if you're on damage 5, again, you've got your 3 cost or less break it. At the same time, as cool as all that is, like, what if you're not playing against discard? I don't know. Maybe it's still nice because it's a sticky forward, which I know how much you're saying a good sticky forward is, but Lightning has such a tight construction already anyway. I'm just saying, well, what do I take out for this? Like, I'm not going to take out Nalua or maybe one of the Kingsglaive or so. I do like the card, and especially that kind of discard protection is really cool, but I don't know. It would be tough to fit it in.
Yeah, I think the same thing, although it is a 3 CP 7k, which is actually very rare in Lightning. So that's something you can't like take lightly. I guess we'll see it if there's a lot of if there happens to be a lot of discard, and or, you know, self-damaging Lightning deck might use this, because if they get to damage 3, it's very, very good, and it's repeatable. Like this field into the break zone is repeatable because he comes back and then you can play him again, and that could be really fun. So I think it's a really cool card, but I probably wouldn't rush to put it in my Lightning deck. One thing I want to mention, there was some really fun stuff on Facebook about like him and Scale Toad and all these different like hypotheticals, and I don't want to go through that all, but that's definitely worth checking out. I think it was on FFTCG NA group, some fun hypotheticals with him and what happens with Scale Toad and other cards that would interact with him. So
yeah, it's one of those cards that if you knew your opponent was going to be playing discard against you, you're like, right, hold on, let me slot this Argy into my deck. Okay, we can go now.
Okay, next up we have Alba. So I like Warriors of Darkness. Travis likes Warriors of Darkness. Let's hope this is worth playing, because the first Alba is good.
Hit him with the pop star dance.
Right? So Alba is a 2 CP forward Warrior of Darkness FFL. When Alba enters the field or attacks, choose one card in your opponent's break zone, remove it from the game. If it's a summon, she gains haste. And if it is a character, then Alba gains 3,000 power until the end of the turn. So this is when she enters the field, you're probably going to try to pick a summon to give her haste. And then when she attacks, you're probably going to pick a character to give her 3,000 power. Unless you need, there's no blockers, and then you're just kind of removing a card that you want to be removed. So it's very, very cool, and it has hastes. I almost think like this would see play out of a Warrior of Darkness build, because if you're playing Warriors of Darkness, I'd still run the first Alba, but like a different deck that doesn't run Alba might run this one because they want break zone removal. But I don't know. It's super interesting. I don't know how to rate this. I don't like it that much, but it's cool.
Higher on it. So for those of you who don't know, when I did that pop star dance at the beginning, the first Alba has won me so many games because she has this effect where she enters, she dulls as many up to as many forwards as Warriors of Darkness you control. So there are numerous games I have stolen by an Alba coming in at the last second and dulls the field, and then boom boom boom, your people go in, and Alba can go in too. That other Alba can get haste. So it is hard to compare it to the other one. That being said, like you said, you could really just put this in Lightning or Lightning X. Like, she's not tied to the Warriors at all, which is cool. And Break Zone Hate is very powerful. Like, unless we ever get something in the game that brings back stuff that's been removed, Break Zone Hate is very strong. Kadaj has shown that to be true. So the idea that you could, knock a Ritz out of their break zone that they were planning to recur, that's really strong. Now, granted, the ultimate combo of you get a summon, haster, then you attack and remove a character, obviously they have to have a summon in the break zone, so that's not super reliable, but she's still just a 2 CP, so I don't think it's a terrible thing to have one of these in there as like a maybe surprise you're dead. Like you said, I don't know if I'd ever play her over the other Alba in Warriors of Darkness, but I like that this one can kind of go anywhere, so I think she's cool. I think I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those characters that like shows up way more than you think it would.
There's a positive spin for it. So when the turn she enters, because you're going to do the haste on entry, and then every time you attack, you're going to pump her up. Usually, the turn she enters, she's removing, like Alba removes 2 cards from your opponent's break zone from the game. Yeah. That's pretty good. Like like if that was straight on an ETB, people would play that. Just for break zone hate.
They do. Okay. He's called Kadai.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah. Yep. Well, I mean, there's so many reasons, but
yeah. No, we could spend all day on Kadai. Yeah. So next we have a card that is just I'm going to tip my hand here how I feel about it. This card is bafflingly bad, and that is Exdeath. He is a 4 CP backup, job wizard, category theater rhythm, as well as 5. When Exdeath enters the field, remove any number of forwards in your break zone, each of a different cost, from the game. When you do so, choose one forward of cost equal to or less than the number of cards you removed. Break it. I mean, it's so complicated. It's so needlessly complicated. So it's on a backup, and we already, what do we know about backup ETBs? Is that they're a little harder to use than forward ones because you only have a limited number of backups. You still kind of want to get them down for their CP advantage as well. So if you're holding Exdeath for your 5th backup slot, and it's just so specific. So again, if they've got a nail on the field you want to break, okay, you have to remove 6 forwards. Forwards specifically, not cards, forwards, they all have to cost differently, which I know plenty of my decks, some of them I've got 3, 4, and 5 costs, maybe a 2 cost. So it's just so specific and so convoluted with all this nonsense. Like, this is one of those cards I would expect, like, oh, it must like board wipe your opponent when you get it to go off. No, it just breaks a character, which there's so many other things in Lightning and in many elements that outright break a character way more efficiently and way simpler. Like, I don't like this card at all. He's nonsense to me.
I do want to clarify, break a forward, not a character. So
all right, break a character.
Yeah.
Break a forward, yes.
Yeah, so I've got good news for all of you out there that are really psyched about this card. You love that he breaks a forward, and you want to play a backup that breaks a forward. Well, good news, we already have a card that does that. It's called Emperor Gestal, and you can just play him and then play some other dark cards, and you're gonna have way better time. So no need to bother yourself with this wizard.
That's a great point. I hadn't even considered that. Yeah, Gestal just makes this guy look like a chump.
Yeah. Okay, next up we've got Odin, which is a 6 CP summon, and it's category 9. The cost required to cast Odin is reduced by 1 for every card named Odin in your break zone. It cannot become 0. Choose one forward, break it. Wowza, that's pretty good. So you just play a bunch of Odins, and then you have a 1 CP summon that's break a forward. It's honestly just really good, and it's like we already have a lightning that searches 2 Odins, and there's lots of there's multiple lightnings with Odin synergy. So I just think like an all Odins deck is going to be super fun to play with.
And that's why cards like this are fun, is because an Odin deck already exists. Like, people were already trying that when the Opus X Lightning came out. So it's again one of those cards, it already fits into something that already exists. Not to mention, other situations you could put it in. If you can get this guy down to 1 CP, just break a forward, whoo, that feels good. But even so, like, even if, let's say, your opponent's hating on your break zone or whatever, paying 6 for this, I mean, that's 1 cheaper than the standard Opus 1 7 cost Odin. Yeah, that one's got a burst, but I'm just saying, like, that one never felt great to cast. This one is at least 1 CP cheaper to cast, and for the most part, you're probably going to at least get them down to 5 or 4, I would think. And again, in those games when they're not touching your break zone, and you just got Odins for days, like, this guy is really good.
It's gonna be great. See you there. All right.
All right.
Let's move on to our legend.
Legend tells of a famed swordsman from Mobius, category 5. His job was Praetorian. He's a forward of 9,000 power, and he costs 5 crystal points to play. His name, Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh reads, first ability is an action ability. Put Gilgamesh into the break zone. Choose one forward. Break it. Second action ability, Dull Gilgamesh. Search for one card named Enkidu and play it onto the field, Dull. Final action ability, tap 3 lightning, 2 colorless. Choose 1 damage forward, break it. This card is just phenomenal. If he literally just had his first action ability and that's all he had, he'd be great. Because I can't understate how good that, because it gives us, as the RVA guys would say, inevitability. he comes down, he's gonna take something out with him, unless you've got some kind of really crazy shenanigans to prevent that. Like, even if they immediately target it with Diabolos or whatever, okay, well, on the way out, boom, I'm breaking that too. So that alone would have made him great. The fact that he can search out Enkidu, which is a 3 CP win guy, which we've seen, and plays it onto the field dull. And then what does Enkidu do? Well, he hits the board for 1,000 damage, right? Okay, well now you've got a damaged forward, which means you can now trigger his final action ability and just break that forward. So that turn, if you were to bring out Enkidu, if you've got the CP for it, you don't even lose like what Gilgamesh would do that turn. You still get to break something. And imagine doing that, dull Enkidu, you pay, you break it, they try to do something to Gilgamesh, okay, well I'm going to break him anyway and break your guy. Like, I'll be honest, he almost reads unfair, and I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of this opus I'm like, dude, that's just not fair. Like, I can't deal with him without him dealing with me just as well. Like, it's one of those cards that it feels like you'll never come out ahead against it. He's always gonna, yeah, it's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Fantastic card. Love the artwork.
Yeah, and I mean, as long as Enkidu survives a turn and can attack again, then that's back online. And I do like that you can just pay, if you're set up, you can pay backup CP, although they were very careful to give it the 3 lightning. If you're playing this in a wind lightning deck, then guaranteed having 3 lightning backups down is not really, it's hard to guarantee that unless you're going heavy lightning, which you certainly could, but they were definitely very careful in costing that. I do like something that you can use your backup CP for, because as long as you're not slowing down too much, it's a really cool way of preserving cards in hand, and it makes your opponent have to answer it. So think about something like Veritas, where you just don't attack into it or you don't remove it until you're prepared to deal with the fallout of it going to the break zone, where you get to pick your character. This is, you don't get to pick. They're going to pick your best forward and take it out. So you have to be extra careful about removing this guy, and that's going to make it really tricky. So yeah, he's incredible. I have 2. I'm going for my 3rd, and I'll be building this deck for sure.
Excellent. I think I can unequivocally say, and maybe I'll look back, not counting light or dark or the multi-element, as far as the 6 mono elements, I think this is the best legend out of all 6 elements, hands down. That's awesome.
He's definitely up there for me, for sure. Okay, next up we have an onion or something. This is Cid FFCC. If you've played this game, you can explain to me what he is. But he is an engineer, of course, and he is dull. Choose 1 character your opponent controls, select 1 counter placed on it, and remove the selected counter. This is how strong Chocolate was. They had to print a counter to her in the same set because they knew that she'd be abused. So but in all seriousness, this is kind of interesting. There's a lot of different cards that put counters on them. If they ever became an issue, then this would be necessary to kind of mess with people's plans and interrupt big turns. But until that is an actual problem, this guy is just a good FFC searched backup from Northstalin, so still good.
Every opus, we get a little bit closer to that engineer archetype that you once mentioned would be interesting. Yeah, you said it all. The only thing I'll add is before this card came out, on like my monster counter cards, I would always stop counting at 3 because beyond 3 it was irrelevant. But now I guess I actually am going to have to count above 3, because if this guy comes in and starts trying to take those off, I'm going to want those extra counters on him.
Absolutely. All right, we've got another engineer.
This is Cid Previa with some gorgeous Amano artwork. I don't know if he's got like a dragon or a dog with him or whatever, but I don't know. I love it. Looks great. So Cid Previa, yeah, I know you're used to his lightning backup version. This one is a 1 cost forward with 2,000 power, also job engineer, getting closer, category 5. He reads, when Cid Previa enters the field, choose 1 forward other than Cid Previa. It gains haste until the end of the turn. So when I first saw this card, I totally dismissed it. I was just like, it's a really weak body. Why bother? Not me. But when I really thought about it, and I'll be fair, Alex Hancock's written review really kind of turned my mind on it too, is that 1 CP to give anything haste is totally fine. There's plenty of cards that do that. And this is on a body too. Mm-hmm. So, and with that, you've got Barts who can pull out 1 CP forwards. Even in just lightning, the idea of just 1 CP, give any card haste, and you still now have this little baby Trump blocker, so he's going to at least prevent a damage for you.
I think that can be really powerful. The only thing is the backup Cid Previa is such a staple of Lightning, Mono Lightning in particular. Some people don't like the high roll nature of that card, but man, nothing feels better than a Cid Previa into a Louisoix into an Alphino turn 1. So it might clash with him, but if you're doing Lightning X, like again, being able to give anything haste on a 1 CP body, that's good value.
Yeah, I like him too. He's there's a lot of 1 CP forward synergy, as you said. There's also Puck that we got last set that works with him. So I think he's going to be good. You have to build around the 1 CP synergy, but it's good to get more support in that category. All right, next up we've got Jegran, who I thought was like Jurgen, like Jurgen's lotion or whatever it is.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, but it's Jegran, and he is a 6 CP 8k forward job knight, which is a relevant job, category FFCC. When Jegran enters the field, you may play, or you may search for a princess, job princess of cost 3 and play it onto the field. Holy cow. It's quite over cost, but this could be interesting to splash something out of color and have a way to play it. If that princess that you search can search itself, then you can really start to get a little more value from this. So I'm gonna leave, like it's got utility and it will only get better with time as they print more princesses, but I had a look through all the princesses, and there's some in each color, and there wasn't really one that I thought was super relevant to the point where I wanted to pay 6 CP for an 8k body.
Yeah, this will be one to watch for the future because, like you said, there's not a ton of ones right now that I desperately want to pull out with this guy. But maybe in the future we'll get some kind of bomb princess that can just boom when she hits the fields really big. Is this guy like the grown-up Onion version of that Cid monster counter remover card we saw?
Yeah,
because I look at his face, he kind of looks like he is.
I guess he's a Papa Onion or something.
Yeah, a Papa Onion. Yeah.
Okay. Sweet.
Yeah, I mean, again, he's a knight, but knights aren't 100% defined.
He's an Onion Knight.
Oh, maybe that's what it is.
There we go. Connecting the dots.
That's what we do here on Matidia Gaming.
All right, let's move on.
All right, so we have our final Warrior of Darkness. This is the final one revealed for this opus. And this is our lovely Diana. This time, she is a 3-cost backup, Job Warrior of Darkness, category FFL. She is an EX burst, and she reads, when Diana enters the field, you may search for 1 forward of cost 1 and add it to your hand. You know, after we saw, I think Glaive was the first Warrior of Darkness we saw, so it's like, oh, okay, the others are going to show up, and then I saw Noct and Alba, and then I was so excited to see Diana, because Diana is probably one of the best ones from the Opus 8 version, and unfortunately, this one doesn't touch it at all. It's just so different. That one pulls back any FFL legend from the break zone, plus she can pump up another one. She's fantastic. This one, it specifically gets a 4-cost, or a 1-cost, and adds it to your hand, and I don't know if it's 3 because of the burst, or maybe just like a 3-cost backup, like that's the defined CP for a searcher, but because it only searches a 1-cost, I don't know. It's, again, there's a lot of 1-cost stuff that came out this set, so I'm sure there's some synergy here with some of that, but I to be honest, I'm kind of having trouble seeing what it is off the top of my head.
So, If I ran this in Lightning without anything like Warrior Darkness, I would straight up use it over Duke Goltana to search for 1 CP Ramza, instead of, unless I was running more than one type of knight. So that right off the bat, it's an improvement there. I don't necessarily think it's a Warrior of Darkness card. However, does Alba specify whether or not she needs Warrior of Darkness forwards?
I want to say yeah, but I actually don't remember off the top of my head. Maybe she doesn't. If she just says Warriors of Darkness, then yeah, technically this is a backup would trigger that.
And that's very nice to have something more permanent to trigger that type of thing. So I do like her, especially with the 1 CP synergy. She can search our Cid Previa, which is really solid, and I think that is... there's some potential there. So she fits in a different deck. She doesn't necessarily even go in the Warriors of Darkness deck, but I think she does, like, more searchers are fine, like that. She does a good job, and she's such a specific searcher that they gave her the X burst and they didn't make her 4 CP, so that means they're really trying to push it.
Yeah, no kidding. One final thing I'll say too is that all the Warrior of Darkness art from Opus 8 is way better than all the art in this set. It just looks more like a portrait. It's more artistic. There's this kind of great sense of motion to all of them. Like, it made me like, oh, I want to know who these characters are. Whereas this stuff looks more generic to me. Like, if I had just seen these without those Opus 8 versions, I'd probably be like, okay, whoever those people are. But the Opus 8 ones, I was like, I want to know who these people are. They look so cool.
Now, is the artwork this set from the game, or from like the promo material for the game? And
I've
the
never
ones
played this game,
okay,
so I don't know.
Because the other ones are like custom art, like they were made for FFTCG.
Yeah.
So I think like you can't ever compare. Like the art that's been made for FFTCG is the best. They really have. Okay, we've got another card here, and it's called Ninja. So Ninja is a 4 CP backup, standard unit, category 14. When Ninja enters the field, choose one forward you control, return it to its owner's hand. If you do so, you may play one forward that costs 1 CP more than it does from your hand onto the field. So it's kind of interesting. It's like, it's a way of cycling your forwards, and then you could play a forward again. So if you're running a bunch of ETBs, you can get a ton of value that way. But you don't want to be playing cheap forwards with this, because then you're kind of overpaying. Although at the same time, if the ETB is good enough, like if you brought an Alba back to your hand and then played some sort of 4 CP forward that did something with, or had haste or whatever it is, and then you played Alba back onto the field again and like dulled, like there's some potential here for some fun plays for sure.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that it's not restricted to any particular element. So in any Lightning X deck, you have a chance to bounce some shenanigans. I don't know, if you're doing Lightning Ice for some reason, you can, bounce Genesis back to your hand to bring down a big 5-cost new orphan or something. It's named Ninja, so it automatically gets consideration in Ninja. Here's the ultimate play you do with this card. You have Edge out with Sukanawa, you have Sukanawa, he goes in, you play this card to bounce him back, put Edge down, to then put Sukanawa again for down. And then you also Tama it in during the attack phase, so that way Sukanawa can go in again at the same time. Total garbage, don't ever do that, but potential's there. No, I like him.
That's fun.
He's fun.
Yeah, this is going to be a super fun card to play with. All right, next up. Actually, I do want to clarify. So Alba says, when Alba enters the field, this is the Opus 8 one. When Alba enters the field, choose up to the same number of forwards your opponent controls as job Warriors of Darkness you control, dull them. So yeah, this Diana backup is going to get you a much harder to remove Warrior of Darkness, so that you can consistently dull 2 characters without them picking off Alba or Diana to mess up your plans. But then you're going to lose the recursion that Diana brings, so I don't think it's worth it. But
still,
next,
cool that it works.
Yeah, it's still cool that it works that way. Next up is my spoiler.
Yeah, I would say this feels kind of familiar. You introducing this card. I feel like I've seen a video about this somewhere.
Oh, but it's actually you that's introducing it.
Oh, it is me. Oh, okay. Well, then this is a little change of pace. So yes, this was Mysidia Gaming spoiler. Alex revealed this about a month or so ago. This is Vivi. He's from Final Fantasy IX, also category Theater Rhythm. He is a 3-cost, 6,000 power forward job black mage. He has an EX burst, and Vivi reads, when Vivi enters the field, choose one active forward if its cost is equal to or less than the damage you have received. Break it. Great spoiler. I was so happy to see this from Alex's video. So basically, in its simplest terms, this is reverse Cecil from Opus 5. Cecil broke a dull forward based on how much damage you have. Vivi breaks an active forward based on how much damage you have. Now, Cecil is a mainstay in my Scions of the Seventh Dawn deck just because he's Earth, he's good EX burst, the Dark special can be good. I'm honestly going to consider swapping him out for this Vivi. Because, honestly, just because he's cheaper. Now, yes, you'd lose the advantages Cecil has as the bigger body and the Dark special, but he's only 3 CP, and, it's kind of a toss-up of what would you rather hit, an active forward or a dull forward? A dull forward is probably a little easier to hit off a burst, because chances are they dulled to attack into you, but if you hit this and they have 2 attackers, you can blast the other one before it attacks you, so that's kind of nice, too.
great common. Vivi is another character that just, he can't get a bad card. They clearly have a lot of love for him because every version of Vivi is just always seen play. Yeah, can't wait to try him out. Great spoiler from a great guy.
I would imagine that this is better for Scions because active forwards can block you and dull forwards can't, so you want to clear out attackers. But that is true that Cecil will deal with your opponent's backswings, allowing you to swing through the next turn. So they're both obviously very good for that deck. But I think it will be an interesting discussion to hear after you've tested both, which one you like more.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. We have Firion, 2 CP Lightning Pack up. This is a Job Rebel, which is something we have synergy for. And then he dulls to choose one forward, deal at 4,000 damage. That's really strong. But you can only use it if you had a party, while a party you control is attacking. So it's very specific. It works with the new party mechanic. I guess this one you really need to build the deck because you have to see like what's the ping used for. If you have a bunch of small forwards, maybe it's like 2 people party attack and they are big, and then you ping off the second blocker or something, or the blocker itself, and then they either trade into you or like your third guy gets through, maybe if you're running a deck with a bunch of small people. But otherwise, I don't know. Seems fine.
Yeah, he's interesting. There's so much stuff that's come out this Opus that the first thing I think of is, the no backup that reactivates when you attack. Like, a lot of this stuff is worth trying out, because in theory what you could do with this guy is you have 2 party attackers. Because you as the attacker control the way the stack works, you can tap Firion, or no, so you first declare the party attack with both of them, and then you can put Firion on the stack first and resolve him, tap him, deal something 4k, have no reactivate off of one forward, tap, deal another 4k, have no reactivate off the second forward, tap, deal at 4k. So in theory you could get out 12,000 damage that way. So I think this card does have a lot of potential because it's cheap and the effect is really cheap and easy to use over and over again. From a cost standpoint, again, you just, like you said, you gotta build around it.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good deck to give as an example, because that has the Chocobo that lets people party attack if they're different elements. So you have to do obviously quite a bit of setup there to have all these 3 cards in place, and then all your forwards out that you want to party attack, but then could be very cool.
He's a great card, though. And I really appreciate, and maybe I'll say this overall at the end with Opus, but just I appreciate all the stuff they've put into party attacking. Like, they didn't just give it one card. It was like, okay, there you go. Now, like, they gave it a lot of different options to, hey, we're going to really try to make party attacking a thing.
Big time. Okay, this next guy is a limited bomb, and it's Behemoth, Job Behemoth, and that is a Crystal Hunt category. So he can become a 9k power forward, or you can put him right into the break zone when you play him and then choose a forward and break it. This is actually, it's just very strong if it was printed a while ago, and now it's probably not worth playing except for unlimited, but it is a cool effect. And like, I don't know, if there's like monster synergy at some point that like helps you bring back monsters or something, then I think that leaves room for this guy. But I mean, this is what Gilgamesh does, but you don't get to choose when, so it's not as good, obviously.
Yeah, I have the little card game Crystal Hunt that this is based on, and it's got really great artwork, so it's cool to see these in this card. I really like this guy when he first came out, and I agree, in limited, he's a bomb. But yeah, for the same CP cost, you could play Gilgamesh to get both effects, to have a forward you can break at any time, and you've got your big 9k body at the same time. So in any form of constructed, never play this over Gilgamesh, because that makes no sense. But again, in limited, if it's the only thing you have access to, he can have some potential.
Did I just introduce that card?
What's that? Yeah, I did. That was me. I introduced that.
Okay, good. I thought I did it for a sec. I'm a little tired today.
You did introduce it. I just let you go, though. It's okay.
Okay, so then you get the next 2. Okay, here we go.
Yeah. That's all right. We'll catch up here.
Yeah.
So next is Cid Previa. I really love this artwork. It's a mono art. I honestly don't even remember this character from 5, but the art really fascinates me. So Cid Previa is a 4-cost, 6,000 power forward, category 5, another job engineer. He reads, when a party you control attacks, choose one active forward opponent controls. Deal it 8,000 damage. When Mid Previa enters the field, choose one lightning forward of cost 1 in your break zone. Play it onto the field. So, of course, the main thing you think of is what I assume is his grandpa or his older form. I'm not sure what the relationship is there, but you can, when he enters the field, you can pull up the 1 cost Mid Previa, give him haste or give somebody else haste. It's really strong that he doesn't have to be involved in the party. Just as long as a party you control is attacking, boom, you're zapping one of their blockers for 8k. You got that Firion backup, boom, you just took out that blocker for 12k. So, like, he reads great. The other Mid Previa too, like, while I saw him a few times, you had to really kind of specify around that card. And this one is so different that I don't think he clashes with the other one at all. Again, if you're really going in on this party thing, I think this is going to be a fun card to experiment with.
Yeah, and this has to be a lightning forward, so that means it's got to be Cid Previa or Ramuh, who you can very, very easily give haste, or Cait Sith, who when he enters the field dulls an opponent's forward. So a lot of good options for an aggressive deck, and I think that's really exciting. I'm excited to try this out.
Me too.
All right, you get another one because I'm a bad host. Yeah.
You're fine. All right. I mean, it wouldn't be lightning without a little help from our favorite summon, right? So this is Ramuh. He is a 5-cost summon. This is a category Explorers. Again, summon artwork for Explorers looks great. He's an EX burst, and he's very simple. Choose an active forward, break it. It's really strong. I honestly appreciate the simplicity of this card. Some of the other Ramuhs, they kind of have some specificity to them. Well, they got to be in this situation. They got to be 4 or less, whatever. So it's kind of nice to have one. Nah, just kill an active forward. That's fine. And he doesn't quite clash with the Opus 1 Odin because that one is just indiscriminate break. This one, it will have to be active. So kind of similar to Vivi, I don't know how good this will be on a burst because they're going to have multiple people out. On a burst, again, if they have it, he's great because he's going to stop another attacker. But if they don't have any active people, then he's just, he whiffs. But still, I think this is a good card, and I think the cost is fine too. It seems like they're really kind of defining that 5 CP to break something is pretty like, okay, that's kind of where we want it.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't know. I don't feel that great about it. I don't want to pay that much to break an active forward. I think I'll probably play some other cards, but I don't think it's bad by any means. I'm not that high on it.
Interesting.
I'm sorry.
I am high on this. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. 5 CP is a lot to pay for an effect they can interrupt. If they somehow have a way to dull their forward, you've just blown 5 CP. So
it is much
actually
less common to dull your own forward than it is to activate your own forward. So I do say it's harder to interact with, but it's not impossible. You're a lot less incentivized to dull your own forward as well for other things. So,
this just in from Square Enix headquarters, an errata is coming of Travis's opinion on this card. Okay. The new errata reads, because for whatever reason I didn't think of this. The only thing that makes this card interesting now that I really look is the EX burst, because what you just said, 5 CP to break an active forward. You know what else does that? Behemoth 0 for 1 CP more, and you dull their entire board. So the only advantage this card has over that really is the burst and I guess the 1 CP. But yeah, like a Behemoth 0 is such a mainstay in my lightning. Anything I have, like, because he's that, hey, surprise, I win the game card. So again, I think if you're playing this, it's for the burst. I don't know why I hadn't considered that. I forgot Behemoth 0 existed, but now I was like, oh, wait a minute. Behemoth 0 does the same thing and dulls the entire board for 1 CP more. So oops.
Yeah, well, I mean, 5 CP is top deckable and 6 CP isn't. So there's something there too, but I still prefer Behemoth 0 for sure. Okay, it's back to me, and we've got Dragoon. Dragoon is a 3 CP forward job standard unit, category special. When Dragoon enters the field, you may reveal any number of Job Dragoon or card name Dragoon from your hand. When you reveal 1 Dragoon, then this Dragoon will gain haste. And if you reveal 4 Dragoons, then this Dragoon is going to be able to choose a forward and break it. So it's got some ETB potential. You have to have a lot of Dragoons in your hand to get a lot of value, but even if you don't, a 3 CP 7k Haster in a Dragoon deck is a welcome addition. It's got upside. It's good for Dragoons.
Yeah, Dragoons are always happy to have haste. Great artwork. And just what a cool effect. I like an effect like this where it's not actually costing you anything to do that. You just reveal a full grip, but you're not paying anything. So that's a neat effect. I'd be curious to see more effects like that in the future.
it will cost people virtually if you are like so close to it and you're like, I'm not going to play anything this turn, and then you fall behind on the board and it doesn't matter that you saved all these cards. So don't get hung up trying to achieve this. Let the opportunity just be right.
Yeah, I like that. The haste is easy enough to get. The other one is probably, if it happens, great, but you probably don't want to hold your cards waiting for it to happen.
Yeah. Okay, our final card.
So in Opus 11, I think we were talking about Dragoons, and I asked Alex, or maybe it was when we talked about this card in like a little spoiler release, I said, is there a backup Dragoon? And Alex said no. Well, guess what? Now there's a backup Dragoon. Our first backup Dragoon is a 2CP backup, job standard unit from Final Fantasy XIV. Multi-playable. You dull him and put Dragoon into the break zone. Choose one job Dragoon or card name Dragoon in your break zone. Add it to your hand. This is one I'm going to have to play to see how it feels, because the way it reads, I don't know, like there's other cards that when they enter the field, they just pull something back to your hand, and that feels really good. So the idea that I got to play this down for 2CP and then tap him and break him to pull the card back, like I think I would have rather him just be 3CP. He comes in and then pulls something back on entry. Because again, like the point of a backup is that it generates UCP. So the idea, like you put this down, crack it, and break it. Now, all that being said, recurring your strongest Dragoon, being able to pull back Aranea or Kane or whoever at the right moment, of course, that's invaluable. And this is very cheap. Some effects like this, they require you to pay an extra CP, a lightning, a colorless, whatever. So the fact that it is, no, you just crack him and break him is really nice. Also, it's not limited to your turn. So at the end of your opponent's turn, you can, and it can be used in response. So like, let's say I'm going to miss drag in your break zone. Before you do, let me pitch this guy and I'm going to pull back my Aranea. So that's how I feel about him.
This card's insane. It's so good. And this is an effect that we've already seen been used in a bunch of decks. WAF also had a similar effect. And now I'm totally blanking. I use Scholar and Ice, which is 1 Ice and then a Dull and Break to bring back a 3 CP forward or less. And I use that all the time to bring back Sephiroth and Squall. And we've also seen this for summons, and they've been used. The fact that it has no CP cost and it's just a Dull and Break, that's really, really good. You don't play this to get something back soon. You play it as you develop your backups, and it's a 2 CP backup, and then late in the game you pull back your bomb to win the game. So you can, like, for example, before Dragoons were even a thing, I bet you right now that people would literally have run this at 2 to 3 just to pull back Estinians back when Estinian came out. Like just purely to pull back Estinians. And then now this can pull back a bunch of Dragoons. So this is just like super utility for Dragoons. It's going to be a must play in Dragoons for sure. And if you splash Dragoons and there's an important enough one, then you're going to play this guy too.
Cool. I hope he does well.
Yeah. Okay, so that's it for the cards we're going to go over today. Travis, how do you feel about Lightning as a whole this Opus?
Let's see. It was nice to see some Dragoon support. Nice to see the other Warriors of Darkness. Odin, like I said, Gilgamesh, I think is far and away the best mono legend we got this element. And I think I'm actually a little higher on Lightning and maybe a few of the other elements. Like everything here reads to have potential. The Vivi's great. The Firion, I think, could be really strong. The Cid Previa, the Ninja effect, like the Jegran, and then like the two little onion guys. Those are kind of the only ones I'm not really high on. And Exdeath, of course, blah. But yeah, I think this maybe is just a little bit higher than some of the other elements for me.
I was thinking the exact same thing. Every element we've gone over has had a little bad, a little meh, and then a little good. I would say that there's very little bad here, and that there's a lot of good stuff and then a lot of okay stuff and like situational stuff. So overall, I think Lightning is the best element we have reviewed so far.
Yeah. I gotta admit, I'm shocked.
Oh no. All right, we have to leave after that, but we will be back. We've got a water video to do, and then we're going to do our light, dark, and multi-element video, and then that's going to be it for the set review series. So lots more to look forward to. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Travis, for joining me, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for watching.